Good morning. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. Our opening hymn this morning is number 300, With Heart and Mind, from the Great Hymnal. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, and stand and body your spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 300, With Heart and Mind. Thank you for joining us here in person And thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the worship committee who make this service possible include Alec Peck, our music coordinator, who is also doing the audio-visual portion today, and Kate Lewicki, who is in charge of our sound system. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. Before we begin, we ask you to join in a moment of silence for the devastating conflicts occurring in the world today, as we pray and hope for peace and justice. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Let's pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. This is the second Sunday of Advent, taken from the Latin word adventus, translated coming. Advent means the beginning of an event or the arrival of a person. In the Christian tradition, this is a time leading up to Christmas, and Christians mark the 4 Sundays in Advent as a way to prepare their hearts for the coming of Christ. For non-Christians, it can be a special time to incorporate the abiding qualities of hope, peace, joy, and love. The theme of the second Sunday of Advent is peace. Last week, we lit the candle for hope. Today, we will add the second Advent candle symbolizing peace. We have someone come up and, oh, there's our Candlemeister, Bill. If we could have him light the hope and peace candles. Thank you, Bill. Once again, we welcome all of you to today's service. Before we move into the service, there are a few announcements we'd like to share. We will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all of this information, and it is also available on our website. Lunch Bunch. The Lunch Bunch will be meeting on Saturday, December 16th at 1:30 p.m. Please see Pat Cowender for reservations. And we also like to thank Women's Federation and all of the volunteers who hosted a Christmas party for us yesterday afternoon. It was well attended and enjoyed by everyone who attended. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Dinah. Christmas Eve. The Christmas Eve service, which is on Sunday this year, will take the place of our usual Sunday morning service. Please join us at 5 p.m. for our evening Christmas Eve service. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. You are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Today's sermon was written by Reverend Brett Lortie. The Reverend Brett Lortie is a senior minister of the Unitarian Church of Evanston, Illinois. and a chaplain and search and rescue pilot with the Civil Air Patrol. He is a contributor to Not For Ourselves Alone, Theological Essays on Relationship, edited by Burton D. Carley and Laurel Hallman, and co-editor of Reverend X, How Generation X Ministers Are Shaping Unitarian Universalism. Music is a universal language of humanity that crosses borders and unites us all. Reverend Lortie reflects on how music, specifically jazz music, might teach us how to approach and resolve conflict in a new and constructive way. We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's reading for our chalice lighting is Second Sunday by David Breeden. Our first Sunday of Advent reminded us to be patient. This second Sunday of Advent, we light the flame in hope that oppression will be dispelled. Please join me in reading the second Advent chalice lighting. In this holiday season, may the darkness of winter be dispelled in this festival of lights, and may ignorance be dispelled in the strength of compassion, reason, and sharing. Thank you, Bill. Greeting our guests. We have a tradition at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up and speak in front of others, and so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about our church. We ask you to step close to the mic here at the pulpit and speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. Please be aware that you will be visible on our Zoom camera and in the recording of this service, which is posted online. Do we have any church members who'd like to volunteer today? Alec, thank you, Alec.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Alec, and I've been coming here since I started my schooling at UCR, which was just about 3 years ago now. And I've been here since then. I found the church by just searching online, as many people do these days. And this was the result, and I've been having a great time ever since. And it's been a great time to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Alec. And that's how it's done. If you are new here, a visitor, or an old friend, please raise your hand to stand up and come to the mic in front of the pulpit. Do we have any volunteers today to introduce themselves? I see someone here in the back. Good morning. Tell us your name, how long you've been here, and how you found out about our church.
Hi, my name's Josh Witherell. Actually, first time here. We're a member of the Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church in Shawnee, Kansas, near Kansas City. Just moved here. just wanted to see how things were in Riverside with your UU church here. So
Perfect.
just checking things out.
Thanks for coming in. Welcome. Anyone else who'd like to come up and introduce themselves? Okay. All right. If there's someone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and we will call on you by Zoom. Let us know who you are, where you are from, and how you found out about us. For any other new guests, please join us for socializing and coffee hour after the service. We'd love to chat with you out in the parish hall, where you can also find our visitors book, or you can enter your name into the tablet. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you were here, and leave your contact information if you'd like to know about upcoming events. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. Our hymn now is number 1020, Wo Ya Ya, from the Teal hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, and stand and embody your spirit, and join us in singing number 1020, Wo Ya Ya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo-ya-ya, 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 wo-ya-ya. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wo-ya-ya, 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 wo-ya-ya,
This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here, as well as on the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. Amazon gift cards are also available. You get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage for free. Please see Dinah Rowe or Robert Brown in the church office if you are interested in purchasing the gift cards. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. For all of you who are here with us today, thank you for the gift of your presence. Will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Thank you. Our next hymn is 402, From You I Receive, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you and stand in body or spirit, and join us in singing number 402, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Our meditation today is by Cricket Hall. I invite you all to take a deep breath, find a relaxed and comfortable position, and if you wish, gently close your eyes. In this time of waiting, may we hold the world in our hearts. In this time of waiting, may we hold each other's hands. In this time of waiting, may we be thoughtful and introspective. In this time of waiting, may we delight in the darkness in all it teaches us. In this time of waiting, may we rekindle the fires of hope, love, joy, and peace within ourselves and within our communities. In this time of waiting, may we become ready for the coming day. Now let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection. Now, I would like to introduce Pat Cowender, reading to us the sermon, Music and Meditation, Resolving Conflict in a Warring World. Pat?
Thank you, Grace. Actually, it's music and mediation. I thought it was meditation too, but it's mediation because it's about peace, I think. Anyway, I'm Pat Cowender. Welcome, everybody. Music and mediation, resolving conflict in a warring world. It was in Alaska, right before the first Gulf War, that I first realized how music can, quote, teach us how to hear the world differently, as jazz critic Jed Russela once said. I was in the Air Force, Gateway to the West Jazz Band, and my unit was temporarily deployed to Alaska, waiting anxiously to hear if we would be sent to the Middle East. A big part of our job was public relations. I guess we put a good face on all those weapons of mass destruction. And there we were in Alaska, where some public relations officer had gotten us into the annual Fairbanks Folk Music Festival and fish fry. It was counterculture central, Alaska style. Now, this PR officer was either grossly incompetent or wise in the skillful sense of the word. As we took the stage, I looked up a dry, grassy hill to a sea of tie-dyed shirts, leather hiking hats, and long hair. These were mountain men and mountain women. Their little mountain kids ran around barefoot. As soon as we approached the stage in our dress blue uniforms, a good third of the audience just got up and left. I think the rest stayed out of sheer stubbornness to give up their folk music festival to the military invasion or curiosity. We kicked off our set with a screaming arrangement of How High the Moon. No reaction. But after we'd played a half a dozen charts, I noticed the mood start to change. The response was subtle. People smiled amongst themselves. Then a few heads started to bob. Some people danced in the back. By the end of the show, we got a standing ovation. Well, I guess we have something in common, a Fairbanks local later said, and then good jazz. For that period of time, we mediated through music a great gap. Our uniforms, which were an affront to the values of that community, became less important than our common humanity, which they could see and feel through the music. Many have noticed the powerful effects of jazz. Sharon Welsh, a professor of religion at the University of Missouri, says that she has learned from jazz how to work with limits and opportunities, possibilities and ambiguity, obstacles and challenges. She says it reveals a new model of resolving conflict without, She says it reveals a new model for resolving conflict, even globally. In jazz, she says, there is a model of responsiveness without progress or repetition, without self-abnegation or self-righteousness. As part of the cultural resources of Americans, it can lead us into a new way of resolving conflict. Avant-garde composer Jonathan Harvey says that, quotes, music is emotionally intense and possessed of a deep sense of harmony, close quotes. He points to how music disproves Aristotle's law of the excluded middle, which says that a thing cannot be two things at once. The law of the excluded middle, which says a thing must either be this thing or that thing and cannot exist in ambiguity. Think of how many times this dualistic notion has gotten our world into trouble. Right versus wrong, us versus them, evil doers versus well who. But music offers us an alternative. For as Harvey says, if music is to be meaningful, it must be more than one thing at a time, beautiful and abrasive, harmonious and dissonant. It must exist in ambiguity, or as poet John Keats wrote, it must be full of contradictions, uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. When Harvey composes music, he says he pulls, quotes, together these dark conflicts and contradictions in an intuitive drive toward the promised land of unity. Risk. When they play, musicians risk their individuality, their sense of autonomy, even their egos. Conflict is inherent in the fabric of what they are doing. In fact, the greater the risk, one might argue, the more powerful the outcome. Think of the John Coltrane piece we heard earlier, A Love Supreme. When that recording was released, it blew people's minds. They just hadn't heard anything like it, a fusion of bebop, intellectualism, Coltrane's own drive toward unity and healing, and love. A Love Supreme, a more powerful and spiritual piece of music I've never heard. What if we could approach all conflict with this in mind? What if we could approach all conflict with the same drive toward healing and unity and love? Creating music takes commitment. It's more than thinking things through. It is delving into the midst of a complex tradition and feeling your way through a lifetime of accumulated stories and feelings. I attended a conference last year led by Sharon Welsh titled Being Good Neighbors in a Brave New World, Truth, Justice, and Jazz. Welsh's work is foundational to what I'm talking about this morning. Of course, at this conference were the requisite periods of lecture and workshop discussion groups. But at one point in the weekend, we were treated to a demonstration by jazz pianist James Williams, one of Art Blakey's former jazz messengers. The concert was an optional evening session. And after 8 hours of sitting in a hotel chair, I didn't feel like climbing onto a rented school bus and being carted across town to where the concert was being held. In fact, probably 2/3 of the conference participants didn't get on that bus. It was such an intellectual thing to do. Dive into the theory without going to a place of risk. Absorb the intellectualism of the conference while missing the heart that was behind it. The concert was a place of risk, What kind of jazz would be played? Aren't I too hungry and tired to go? Do I even like jazz? Actually, the jazz I listened to that night wasn't easy for me to get into at first. I'm a fan of bebop and free jazz forms, where combinations of instruments throw ideas back and forth, build on each other's ideas and references, engage in an intricate challenge and response that ultimately resolves into the great, the awesome, oh yeah. Here was a single guy sitting at a piano, playing from the American Songbook. He later told me that he was playing what he thought Unitarians would like. As the evening progressed, however, I watched the lone piano man start shift things up a little, respond to us. It all came unglued for me when he played Old Man River with a syncopated, on the edge of the piano conclusion that pushed right into our zones of risk and said, listen to my history, where I'm coming from. That conference got me thinking, but it didn't get me acting. I often congratulated myself during that time for the work I did at a peace magazine I edited as its managing editor, called the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, which kept me going, but didn't get me acting. Even as a seminary student, I often do a lot more thinking and preaching than I do acting. And what is acting? For me, it is anything that gets me out of my personal arena and engaged with the larger world. It took the anniversary of the second US Iraq invasion to get me out of my editor's chair and marching through downtown Chicago, protesting the second Gulf War. Up to 10,000 people were there, along with 1,100 police officers to keep us in line. I marched that day, trombone in hand, with Environmental Encroachment, a performance band that I'd played with over the years, and the All-American Anti-War Marching Band. EE, as we were known, has the mission of mediating bleak environments through Mardi Gras-style music, costumes, and creative play. I've been in protests before, but that day's had a soundtrack, and we were part of it. The two bands didn't even know each other's music. We just listened to what the other was doing and improvised along loudly. As I played past rank upon rank of blue-helmeted, armed policemen officers, I noticed some things. I saw two activists arguing passionately over the structure of the event and the poor negotiating strategies of the organizers. I saw an outraged marcher screaming at me with a bullhorn, trying to turn us around because we had compromised ourselves by marching down Clark Street instead of Michigan Avenue to avoid arrest. I saw the police trying not to enjoy the music, especially our rendition of When the Saints Go Marching In. At an earlier point in my life, I would have come away from the protest in a rage that could have lasted for days. For some reason that I can't yet clarify or identify, I wasn't filled with that level of rage that I once would have experienced. Instead, I was actually thinking about Sharon Welsh's idea excuse me, that everyone there that day was playing their part in a great jazz set. We all had something to say. Yeah. Thank you. We all had something to say, the marchers, musicians, speakers, and police. Let's push a little more at Sharon Welsh's metaphor of jazz music as it relates to conflict resolution. What does it take to improvise? First, a respect for the tradition, one we can learn and practice without falling into repetition. Next, a respect for other players. As James Collier once said, the worst can be said of a jazz player is that he or she doesn't listen. Finally, an openness to learning, working with difference and novelty, and practice, lots of practice. If we look at the chord progressions that are written into every jazz score as that which binds musicians and community, the logic of jazz teaches us something else about transformation. That the social fabric is not held together by our intellectual ideals, but through the reality and proximity of people interacting with each other. That is, the ground of social transformation is not the ideal versus the real, not the ideal versus the real, but the real versus the real. Those police officers on the street and their guns were real, and the danger and risk were real. We'll say hallelujah. We have challenges in our work, to be sure. As Welsh points out, there are mutually exclusive strategies to work out, like the protester physically trying to turn the band around so we could get arrested and really make our point. There are fractious coalitions, like the two organizers who were arguing about the best way to protest. There are power struggles, as I felt so viscerally in the presence of so many police and their weapons. Like jazz musicians, how do we bounce off of one another without falling off the stage? How do we play up our mutual strengths and at the same time check and limit, says Welsh, the corrosive effects of its weaknesses? How can we respond to, play with, and work with the weaknesses in others or our own responses? When we do, we swing. How can we next turn from an ethic of control, where we try to change each other and make them into us, to an ethic of risk, where we accept that we can neither undo the past nor control the future, but only exist responsibly and compassionately in the present? When we turn from an ethic of control to one of risk, we are challenged to live creatively with, as Welsh puts it, the disjunction between the clarity of our moral imperatives, justice, peace, equality, and the ambiguity of our efforts to implement these ideals in our economic and educational system and in a foreign policy focused on diplomacy and cultural power rather than military force. I've come to believe that when we, as UUs, as believers in the value of peace, fail to put ourselves with our collective voice into the middle of things that are dear to our hearts, we have done a disservice to the world. You know, the world deserves a lot from us. And if we don't join the chorus of people demanding justice, of people demanding an end to violence, of people demanding we answer to our higher selves, of people taking risks, then we aren't doing all we can to engage in the world. Giving voice to our values doesn't have to be big or loud. It can be joining a vigil, writing a letter, forming a study action group, anything that moves us from the personal toward engagement with the global community around us. I think the world deserves our song. If we believe in peace, if we are against war, the world deserves to hear our songs. If we are in consensus that violence is not the only answer, then the world deserves to hear that song. Now go and sing. May it be so in our lives and communities.
Our closing hymn is number 100. I've got Peace Like a River from the Gray Hymnal. Once again, feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you and stand in body or in spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 100. I've got peace like a river.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul, in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul, in my soul. I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean in my soul. I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean, I've got love like the ocean in my soul, in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul, in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops
Every week, we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week, words and music offer and celebrate peace with the hope of instilling it in us. Now, take the peace you have found here back out into the world with you. Renewed in our faith and inspired to act, let us be the peacemakers the world aches for. And by being peacemakers, let us find the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Pat, for sharing your valuable time and reading the sermon for us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. For those of you who would like to stay in the sanctuary for 10 to 15 minutes to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary or online, and be aware that these comments will also be posted online. For the rest of you, you are now welcome to adjourn into the parish hall. Is there anyone who would like to come up and share their thoughts on what we heard this morning? Pat. So we'll start with Pat.
I really liked that sermon. Goodness knows we need that at this time. But I was remembering the first Gulf War when we marched, this church, and we lined Mission Avenue with candles. It makes me emotional, I'm sorry, but it was such, the first Gulf War was so awful. Anyway, I just wanted to remind people, if you weren't here for then, if you weren't here then, or you weren't here for that, we've done that over the years. We've done good things with this church, and we've had really full pews when, what's his name? The minister that came? No, Cynthia Kane invited, well, I'm sorry? Yeah, but who did she invite? The famous guy?
Jesse Jackson.
I'm sorry?
Jesse
Jackson, yeah. And every seat was full in this place. It was packed. It was so great. I'll never forget, standing on the side was this huge guy with guns to protect Jesse Jackson. But it was just an amazing day. Anyway, enough.
So I think we have a comment from Bill and then Walt. Okay.
I think the tricky thing about jazz sometimes is there was a time where I was just thinking about the Christmas carols and how there was a period there where I think a lot of the old traditional people were just sort of gritting their teeth to the rocking around the Christmas tree. And it was the whole idea of, here's a song, here's an old classic, might have gotten a bit stale. So we're going to go in and act upon the song and crank it around and move it. And it was less in the spirit of jazz and more in the spirit of graffiti. It was not in the, this is good enough. Sometimes that's needed, but other times there's the moment where you take two elements and you're honest to God, listen to both of them. And like you say, that emotion stuff is catching. That bridge that actually forms up when you say, for example, when they had the Harry Belafonte Christmas song, you know, long time ago in Bethlehem, the Holy Bible say, and they go on for a calypso look at it. And it was saying, sung by somebody who says, there will never be snow in this neighborhood, not unless they reverse the magnetic poles or something. But here's an idea that has spread far beyond its roots, has touched another culture, and that culture comes up with the best they got, which is calypso in that area. And they stir it into the pot, and all of a sudden you're going, same, different, no mockery. When we cook together, when we realize we can give each other blood transfusions, maybe, just maybe, we can move this place to a season of peace and of love and of maybe putting the guns away, not just for the season, but for quite a while, because it doesn't add, those things don't add to my life.
And then we had a comment from Walt.
Sorry, it's a bit off the topic because I could ad-lib forever on everything, but I just thought it has to be said that the kettling, the slaughtering of Palestinians over along Rafah, it's become too much for the rest of the world. Perhaps you saw in the UN, the US was the only one who voted against a ceasefire. Thank you.
Sometimes the season will nail you with emotion, but it's been a very rough time for the last few years. So let us remember, even during the season, while we reach for the straws of what's left of the hay bale of our emotion, the little scattered pieces, let us remember that we can act while deeply emotional, we can act clinically, and we can still act while battered numb. This time has always been a rough one for me. And sometimes with the latest stuff, you get numb. But numb or not, I'm still ready to act.
Is there anyone online who'd like to add comments? No? Okay. So, okay, if there's nothing further, then we thank you all for sharing your thoughts. And please join us now in the parish hall for further fellowship. Thank you.